my name is Amog Brata Bhattacharya.
Okay.
Okay. So we should start. Would you kindly start with your introduction?
Okay, yeah, sure. So, my name is Varun Mahankali. I'm from Hyderabad, and I have recently graduated with a Master of Science degree in Petroleum Engineering. I have done my master's in Russia. It's a university called. Is there someone speaking? No.
No, no, no.
Okay.
It's
Okay. So I have done my master's in Russia. It's a university called Skolkovo Institute of Science and Technology. So it's Skoltech for short. And I've just graduated in June, and now I'm working as an oil and gas domain specialist in a company called IPExcel in Bangalore. So my specialization, I would say, is geophysics and geomechanics, among others.
great to know that, sir. Great to know that. It was a really nice introduction of yours, and the first thing that really bugged me up, or the thing not bugged me up, really made me curious about your thing, is what made you choose petroleum engineering? Because back in your time, it was a pretty unknown domain. Even this time, it's a pretty unknown domain, right?
Yeah, okay, to be frank, I don't really have like a huge motivation to get into petroleum engineering. Uh, and even after 2 years into the bachelor's course, I still didn't understand what exactly am I studying, uh, what exactly are petroleum operations, what is the industry. It was not very clear to me. And I think it was just fortunate that I happened to develop interest and passion towards this industry as I was learning more and more.
Oh, it was great. I would like to hand over the toss to Anirudh Bhaiya now. In that case,
Yeah, so Varun, that was quite a generic question, the first one, that why did you choose petroleum engineering?
Hmm.
Because yeah, you can, as you can see, many, at least I think it's like almost all the students join petroleum engineering without any concept of the subject, right? They don't even know what that is. They think it's somewhat related to fueling stations where you can take your car and fill in some petrol. It is something related to refineries, and then very few, like who have seen the rigs working or the pumping jacks. They know that yeah, oil comes out from the earth, and we are going to study about it. Right, that's it.
Hmm. Hmm.
But the more interesting question, or the main thing which I'm curious about is why did you go for masters? Because you can see, like, if you're yes already studied 4 years of engineering, and it should be enough for your if you want to uh, pursue a career in the oil and gas sector. But
Okay.
what specifically made you choose to go into that domain? That, I mean, in petroleum engineering, it is not as usual to go for masters or for higher education.
Yeah. So, when I began my education in petroleum engineering, it was 2014. And, this 2014 to 2016 is kind of like a bad period for petroleum industry because it was like the after effects of shale revolution. The barrel prices were extremely low and the industry was in a bad state. But what they always told me while I was in my bachelor's is that by the time I graduate in 2018, the industry is going to bounce back somehow. So this is what they told me, what I always heard, which didn't happen, which did not happen actually. So it was, and I kind of had the idea of going for masters to have like a narrow area of specialization, and I was looking at all these schools, all these international universities, and I happened to find the place. Just a second. Mm, Okay. Yeah. So I happened to find this university where I studied, and it was pretty great opportunity because they were also it was also like working in the lab itself, and I was you should understand that it was during my final year of petroleum engineering that I finally had some kind of idea of all these modules in petroleum engineering, like geochemistry, geophysics, reservoir engineering, petrophysics, and all these different modules. So by the time I had any proper idea, I was already finishing my bachelor's degree. So this is why I wanted to continue and not rush into any kind of job because I had this time luxury that I have this option to continue, so I thought of continuing for masters. And I would also like to say that going to Russia was kind of a gamble for me because people don't really choose this country, and I didn't know anyone before I went to Moscow. But looking back at hindsight, I would say that it's probably one of the best decisions I ever made because uh, it took me like in quite a few directions which I don't think I would have gone if I didn't go for this masters. And yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it.
That was pretty nice, actually. Or rather, I should call you Varun, as you told. Uh, yeah. So, what about your experiences in Russia? That really interests me. What about your experiences in Russia?
Yeah, so during my masters, I had the opportunity to work in multiple projects. So I formally on paper, I was part of geomechanics and gas hydrates research teams. In my university, we had different research modules like geochemical thing, petrophysics thing, geophysics thing. So I was part of geophysics and geomechanics and gas hydrates team. So, but also parallelly, we were also doing many other projects as I sent you my bio. And the, the most opportune thing is that these projects, they're not academic projects. They're not limited to the course which you are studying. The projects were mostly industrial based. So you had real field data, you had real projects, and your contributions were actually being used in a commercial project as you were finishing your work. So these kind of experiences they take you quite far because when you're working for such projects, you need to have some knowledge. And when we speak about learning, colleges don't teach anything. You have to learn for yourself. It's only the opportunities that you tend to find which makes this degree kind of desirable or kind of beneficial. As for learning new softwares, new simulation softwares, new algorithms, reading papers, you do all of these things on your own. You have to do self-initiation. So yeah, those this is my project experience kind of in general and you can ask me any question about any particular project if you're interested.
Okay, in that case, I was actually interested about your like software related programs like the artificial intelligence and the machine learning.
Mhm.
Like, would you shed some light on that? Like, why it is important for today's petroleum engineers? We generally tend to ignore that a bit.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you, when I was in my bachelor's, I always thought that I was different. My field was different from the field of coding and machine learning and everything. So I never really thought that I have to put some efforts to learn these things because I thought my domain was kind of different and I don't need it. But let me tell you, coding and machine learning, they are not a field, they are tools. They are tools which anyone can use to enhance your project even more. Machine learning is one thing which can make an A grade project into an A plus project. I'll give you a small example so it's easy to understand. What I'm gonna talk about, look, when you're doing experimental research in petroleum industry, we always have some kind of limitations. You have limitations in terms of time, you have limitations in terms of equipment or samples, the number of samples. You have some kind of limitation all the time. Therefore, the experimental data you attain by performing this limited in this limited criteria, the data itself is somehow it can be called as limited data. So you can either submit this limited data as your project findings, or you can do machine learning algorithms which will enable you to extrapolate this data furthermore beyond the limitations. So since whatever I spoke right now is kind of generic, I'll give you an example which is kind of specific. So let's say that you are doing some kind of experiment with, let's say, 5 samples. Let's say you're doing some kind of testing for 6 hours, and this is your limitation. You cannot do for more than 6 hours. Let's say that, okay? So anything, mechanical testing or chemical testing or whatever. So you have 5 samples, and your limitation is 6 hours. So at the end of your experimental analysis, you have data for 5 samples for 6 hours. What you do now is you build a regression model. Regression model is a kind of machine learning algorithm. So you design a machine learning algorithm, and the data you have, 6 hours for 5 samples, you're going to use this data, you're going to feed this data to your algorithm. This is going to be your training set. So the machine learning algorithm, it learns how these samples were changing in those 6 hours. It learns those parameters, it learns the whole criteria of how these samples are changing. And after it learns, it finishes learning, you can then ask the algorithm to predict what happens in the next 4 hours. So in the whole, you're going to receive data for 10 hours for your sample, where 6 hours is your experimental based data and 4 hours is machine learning data. This literally is the difference between an A grade project and an A plus grade project. So you're going to extrapolate your 6 hour data into your 10 hours data beyond your lab limitations. So this is how everybody can use machine learning for their own projects. And this has nothing to do with any computer science, engineering, or designing any software. I'm going to use the code for my own gains, for expanding my project findings. So yeah, this is what I realized and what I applied for my own project as well.
Yeah, that was pretty nice. One thing that I want to ask you in that, like for example, imagine like we have in data, like just like you give, we have in total time period of 6 hours, right?
Okay.
Huh. And then we generally use manpower, or people like to involve in the total experiment. Once we introduce machine learning, a huge portion of the lion's share of that portion is done by the machine itself. So
Okay. Mm-hmm.
it is reciprocated in the industry, don't you think it might lead to some loss in jobs? Or like if machines are doing better job, then what about the human resource?
Okay, so what you're talking about is AI. It's like artificial
Yeah.
intelligence. And when you talk about machine learning in research, so you can use machine learning for tasks which are not possible through humans, or which are going to take incredibly large amount of times for humans. These things can be done by these algorithms in much more accurate way and much more faster. And when you talk about replacing humans in the industry, uh, you are also going to gain more jobs by applying machine learning in industrial jobs. For example, it's going to replace so many manpower or labor kind of jobs, but it's also going to create more jobs because you have a new variable inside the whole equation. Whenever you have a new variable, you need people to manage this. And you need people for troubleshooting. You need people for maintenance. You need people for installation. So yes, it is true that it's going to lead to some losses of some jobs which can be automated, but it's also going to create more jobs which are actually skill based jobs.
That's the thing. Mhm.
So this is not a bad thing. This is how we develop, because when cars came onto the roads, people who used to pull the vehicles like horse carts, bullock carts, they all went away because you have cars now. But you also automobiles is like a huge. So this is how machine learning can increase the number of jobs, when you compare the net result, the loss and gains, it's unbelievable. You have a lot of jobs being created, and when you compare it with the number of jobs being lost, it's nothing. It's basically nothing.
So it's kind of being good for the greater good. It's better for the greater good.
Yeah, this has been happening since the beginning. I mean, you had kerosene lamps, and when so many people used to probably work to bring these kerosene lamps into the market, like and when you have electric bulb, all the people who work for kerosene lamps, they don't have jobs. But electric bulb is like a new industry now. So this always happened in our history. It's not something new now.
Right, right, right. That's a very good point actually. This thing bugs the petroleum engineers a lot, especially if I
Mhm.
talk about the general mass. Like I've seen in the people also of my classes, they're confused about it. Just the question that I asked you, and
Mhm.
that was a pretty enlightening moment. I think people would be really benefited from that. So you actually told that your college said you that there would be a boost in jobs when you joined in 2000 initially in 2014, and after
Yeah,
that your college instructed there would be a boost in jobs and boost in the petroleum industry. So
yeah.
can you give in like like a mind map of how you went through it, and what would be the how would you compare the situation in 2014 to that of 2020?
Okay, so in 2014, I don't think we have to talk a lot about 2014 and 2016 because it's kind of like a bad period. And what exactly happens in this bad period is when you have huge companies who do most of the operations in the oil and gas industry, companies like Chevron, British Petroleum, Total, Shell, all these companies, they stop further exploration and further drilling into new wells. They concentrate when the industry is down, they concentrate more on keeping the production wells alive, and they concentrate mainly on production wells which are already producing. They try to minimize the amount of exploration and drilling. So when you minimize the exploration and drilling, it massively reduces the number of new hirings which you have to make, because the staff you already have for production engineering today is gonna be the same staff you require 1 year later as well, because it's like protocol based thing. There are no new developments. There's nothing new in production engineering. What happens today happens the next month as well. When you limit exploration and when you limit drilling, this is where you cut down most of the jobs, and this is what happened in 2018 as well. There were no exploration projects even in India. There's literally no exploration and no new drilling of any new wells, which massively cut down the number of new hirings. And also, when you have only production engineering is operating in your country, in your company, and you require a new job, a new hiring, people tend to go for people who have 5 years experience or 10 years experience. They don't try to choose. They don't try to recruit fresh graduates because there's a lot at stake. When you're managing production well, it's a lot at stake, and they don't want to. They want people who have experience in crisis management. They want people who have seen the ups and downs of the industry, so they have someone who have some kind of contingency plan. So in this kind of environment, it's very difficult to find a job for a fresh graduate in 2018. And in this year, in 2020, we have the pandemic, and we have this oil war between Saudi Arabia and Russia. So barrel
Yeah.
prices were into negative in April. So again, in this kind of scenario, you have even further less hirings in the fields of logistics, in the fields of storage, and Contango is actually the name of the business which deals with storing crude oil. Contango is basically buying crude oil when it's low price and selling it when the price is high. So even Contango market was completely down in April, which was never seen before. So in this kind of environment, you have difficulty finding jobs in operations-based companies. However, there are still other ways for potential job seekers, which I will explain a bit later when we talk about uh, the the new students who are trying to look for a job. I'll explain that later.
Yeah, that's actually was one of my questions. Like, what would be the suggestion to new students explaining for a job? And
I
we'll
can,
come to that afterwards.
we can maybe make that like the final message to
Yeah,
aspiring petroleum engineers, right? Yeah.
right. That what I initially thought of, and that is actually very important.
Mhm.
Like Varun, you told us about you were part of gas hydrate projects, right?
Yes, yes.
And I've been to some like workshops or lectures, and they are very fascinated about gas hydrates. Gas hydrates being the future of oil, or like the future of energy. But
Hmm.
as per I have studied, or as per the news articles, we don't still have very good technology to extract gas hydrates, since most probably approximate they get the volume increases up to 6 times when they are exposed to atmosphere, if I'm not wrong.
It's one is
Then
to 173. It's
Okay.
in 1 cubic centimeter, in 1 cubic meter of gas hydrate, you have 173 cubic meters of gas. So it's
Okay.
highly pressurized conditions. And
Right.
imagine this 1 meter cube scenario in terms of kilometers. So you have
Kilometers, right.
trillion cubic feet of gas just lying there. It's just there. So
Yeah.
this is why you can see all this potential interest into gas hydrates field. Even governments are looking for gas hydrates. Last year, I spent a few months in IIT Bombay, where I was conducting gas hydrates research on behalf of our government, on behalf of Indian government. So they have given this project to IIT Bombay, and the lab they assigned this project. It was a civil engineering lab, and I was the lead project manager for this project when I was there. So we were trying to investigate the geomechanics of gas hydrates. This was also my master's thesis, and this was where I also used machine learning algorithms. So everything we talked about is coming into the same picture now. So
Actually.
yeah, I'll give you a small perspective for the sake of comparison, like to understand why people are so interested in gas hydrates. So in the world, we have gas hydrates. If you're able to successfully extract 20% of all the gas hydrates in the world today, it's going to be sufficient for all of mankind's uses for 200 years. 20% successful recovery is going to be enough for 2 centuries. And gas hydrates is basically methane, which has less carbon footprint compared to oil or coal or all these other fossil fuels. So you have a solution for climate change, you have a solution for rising oil, all this oil destability and oil crisis situations. It's gonna revolutionize everything once we, but it's gonna stay in research domain for at least the next 20 years. That's what I personally estimate, being in the field, because to move into industrial practice, you need computational simulations based in gas hydrates. So you can do the simulations in your itself. Schlumberger is actually in the process of developing a simulation software for gas hydrates, but it's not looking good. It's not looking like it's going to be done anytime soon, because there are a number of complications. Gas hydrate is kind of unstable sea. It's unstable sea structure, and mechanical stimulation. I mean, drilling into this kind of unstable environment can cause a geohazard itself. So it's very difficult. I mean, you understand how difficult is offshore engineering, right? All these floating platforms, and now you have floating platforms drilling into an unstable structure, geological structure, which is it's not even rigid. It's kind of like floating. And so doing 1 meter cube gas hydrates in the lab is easy, extracting gas from that. But extracting in the scale of kilometers is difficult. It's not going to be done for the next 10 to 20 years at least. But it's a big solution for many problems we face today.
So, if we come to a gist on that, like there are scopes for that, right? There are scopes,
Yeah,
but not in the present.
No, I mean, even in the present, there are a lot of governments, a lot of companies. They're looking for researchers who can work on these gas hybrid projects. I mean, it's not going to magically be possible one day. You have to work for that, right? You have to build up your research for that. So it's not like you can't say that there's no market today. There is a market today in the research domain. And when enough work is done here, then you will have some market in computational simulations domain. Then you're going to have some work on field work. And finally, you're going to have industrial practice. So you always have a market. You have a market today too. So there's no discouraging people who want to study gas hydrates. They're more than welcome to do some research.
Actually, we need some good researchers in our field. We are really
Yeah.
lacking it. So I've just gone through CV, and I found out that you have the Imperial Barrel Award project by AAPG, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, can you shed some light on that? Like, what was your
Yeah.
experience, the overall gist?
Yeah. So IBA is a competition conducted by American Association of Petroleum Geologists, AAPG, like you said. So in this competition, they conduct this in different regions. Like you have the Asian region, you have Europe region, you have African region, North American region, and the winner of all of these regions, they go to the world region, everyone together. So I was in the Europe region, and what exactly happens in IBA? You have a team of 5 people, okay? And in December, AAPG assigns you with a basin. For me, I received North Danish Basin, North Danish
Okay.
Sea actually. So what exactly it means by assigning? They tell you that you have to work on North Danish Basin, and they give you 3D seismic acquisition data. They give you petrophysical data, I mean log data, caliper log, gamma ray, neutron, all this log data. So they give you real field data for 3D seismic acquisition and petrophysical data. And you have to work from December to March. You have 3 months. You have to make all kinds of research and analysis in the domains of geochemistry, regional geology, petrophysics, geophysics, migration pathways, spectral decomposition, seal integrity, etc., etc. You have to do everything. And the final goal is to propose lead and prospects with high coefficient of success in your basin. Okay, so basically what you're doing is you're selling your basin to stakeholders. You have to convince them to invest in your basin, and you have to justify your claims with proper research and analysis in all the domains that I've mentioned previously. So for this project, we received corporate funding from Rosneft Russia and Schlumberger Russia. So Schlumberger, they provided us with all kinds of software like Petrel ENP, TechLog, and Petromod. We used these softwares for this analysis. They gave us free versions. They are licensed softwares. And Rosneft basically funded our whole trip to, it happened in Czech Republic. So we have to go there and present. Now, when you go to present, you have 20 schools in the whole of Europe who are going to take part in this competition. Only 20. And when it happens, we managed to reach the semifinals. We were the top 3 schools. Only one team gets to go to the world domain. We were in the top 3 in that competition. So that is how the whole program works. If you do this IBA project itself, you understand how to do seismic interpretation. You understand how to identify resources, how to identify oil reserves, potential leads. You call them lead and prospect. You identify those lead, you do volumetric analysis, you give an estimation of how much oil, how much gas you can find in these prospects which you're proposing. So you make a whole business proposal, in short, justified by technical evidence. That's IBA.
Yeah. Wow. That was a pretty hefty thing, to be honest. Like,
Yeah,
we would like to experience that too one day, if we are
yeah.
fortunate and hardworking enough in that sense of something. You have been to various technical questions. Now let us talk something good. Like, what are your hobbies? What are your
Uh,
personal free time things?
so since I was like since I was in primary school, I was that one guy in your class which people pick first while selecting sports teams. So I was like completely into sports. I like tennis, I like football, and I like working out in general. This takes like 2 hours of my every day, just like that. And in other times, I don't know. I these days I'm watching IPL, and you don't have much hobbies when you always have to stay home, right? So for the past few months, I don't really have a lot of hobbies, outdoor hobbies, because in general I'm like this extreme sports kind of guy. I like to go for skiing, for skydiving, and all those things when I was in Moscow. So these days I'm like a
Wow.
quiet person doing my work.
So I've been experienced skydiving. Skydiving.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
have a
how was the
certificate.
experience?
Uh, so the first time you do this, it's kind of mixed feelings. You're excited, you're scared, you don't know what to feel by yourself. But it kind of takes a part of you when you do this once. You want to do it again. And I had this opportunity where I did this training program, and I can do skydiving by myself now without a trainer.
Wow.
So it was really crazy when you're falling to the ground from that height.
So have there been a situation like when you thought the parachute won't work or something like that, or like you were
Yeah, yeah,
really
all the
scared?
time. That's the only thing in your when you're about to jump. What if my parachute doesn't open? What if I just fall down? Because when you look down, everything looks it looks like Google Maps. When you look from the aeroplane, it looks like Google Maps. It looks like it doesn't look like roads and everything. It looks so small, and when you fall, there's so much air hitting your face. It's such an adrenaline rush. You don't know what to think.
Well, this might be the what is it? It must be the most addictive thing ever. Like once you start
Yes,
it, it must
yeah,
be the most addictive.
yeah. You want to do it again. You want to do it again. That's it.
I'm kind of envious of you right now. You have had
Yeah,
such a lot of experience in that.
yeah.
That's really that's. I always
Yeah,
dreamt of like learning this or something, doing that, but I don't have much of an exposure over here. So in future,
yeah.
let me see. I'll be in contact with you in that case.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Anytime. I'm always. It's always nice to talk with sports lovers and extreme sports passionate people. So yeah.
That's really nice. So I think like we have covered most of the things on today's interview, and
Okay.
we're almost to the end of it, right?
Hmm.
So last and final thing that I would like to ask you is, what would be your message that we already planned over there? What would be your message to the budding petroleum engineers in India?
Yeah, yeah. So okay. Firstly, I want to say that it can be. I understand how. I mean, I'm talking to students now, not just you. So I understand how confusing, how even scary it feels right now to be in this petroleum field. I mean, I think the proper word is insecure. It could you could feel insecure in this field in today's day because there's not much awareness. There are not many people who can give you proper guidance, who can tell you what exactly you're supposed to do. So even though I know situations where people are actually they want to work hard, but they don't know where they should work hard. So there can be these kind of scenarios, and for these budding and the future petroleum engineers, I have three advices for them, which I plan to convey now. First thing is for job seekers. So what I would like to tell you is, do not rush do not rush into abandoning the petroleum industry. So I have seen this. I have seen some of my friends from bachelors and some other people I know is I know that it's difficult to find a job in petroleum industry, and you probably have one or two job offers in some other industry like software or something. But still, don't rush into abandoning your field just because you got a job in software. You'll still get the job after 3 months or something if you don't find anything in petroleum. So, because the reason I'm saying this is because once you abandon this in petroleum industry and join another industry full time, it's kind of irreversible. It's very difficult to go back. Very, very difficult to go back into your petroleum domain. So take your time. Do not rush into abandoning this field. If it's an internship, go for it. If it's anything temporary, go for it. But full time, just take your time and do not rush into it. My second advice is kind of a continuation to the first advice. It's also for job seekers. So, what I have personally seen with myself and my friends is when you look for a job, when a recent petroleum graduate is looking for a job, they only look in operational and engineering based companies like Weatherford, Baker Hughes, Shell, Total, British Petroleum, and all these companies who do actual petroleum industry jobs. So try to broaden your search, try to broaden your parameters. I'll tell you how. Because popularly known petroleum jobs are these operations and engineering based jobs. But in India, today you have a huge number of service providing companies. So they do a lot of services, not just petroleum, they do services like financials, they do services like software designing. And these companies, they have major clients who are from engineering, petroleum industry. So when you're a company who does software development, you need a computer science engineer, but when your client is petroleum industry, you also need a petroleum engineer to understand your client's demands. And when you're a financial company, you need a financial analyst. But when your client is petroleum engineering in petroleum industry, you need a petroleum engineer to understand your client's demands. You need your financial analyst and petroleum engineer to work together for this client. The same goes for a number of service providing companies. This is what I personally did. I tried to look for these companies. And every recruiter, they tell me that it's very difficult for them to find the right candidate in petroleum engineering. So not only there are candidates who feel it's difficult to find a job, you have recruiters who feel it's difficult to find the right petroleum engineer. So where is the problem? The problem is awareness. These students who are looking for jobs, they are not including these service providing companies into their search parameters. And those recruiters, they just feel like nobody's graduating in petroleum engineering, because the place I joined right now, the place I'm working right now, it's a service providing company. They provide intellectual property services. I'm the oil and gas domain specialist. They have been looking for this person for 6 months and they didn't find anyone. So not even a single person. So this is my second advice. Try to broaden your search. Try to look beyond engineering and operation based companies, because these huge MNCs, Weatherford, Halliburton, Baker Hughes, all of these companies, they only go for people who have 5 years experience, 10 years experience. So it's not likely that you're going to find a good job right away anyway. So try to look for service providing companies. You have to do everything yourself. There's no job portal. There's nothing who are going to guide you in petroleum engineering. You have to do it yourself. It's going to take time. It's going to take some work. But there are recruiters who are looking for petroleum engineers. That's what I want to say. This is a kind of a solution for job seekers who feel it's difficult to get a job. My third advice is for students who are looking for higher studies, who are looking to go for higher studies and study more in petroleum engineering domain. So what I would like to tell you is try to do a specialization. Try not to do something generic, something like geophysics or something. So try not to do something like reservoir engineering. It's very broad. It's very generic. You're going to do the same courses you did in your bachelor's. You did reservoir engineering in your bachelor's, right? You're going to do the same course in master's in some other country by some other professor. That's the only difference. So try to do a specialization in cutting edge next generation technologies. So I have written down some next generation technologies for your for helping you. So you can do specialization in microseismics. Microseismics is is basically like looking inside the earth. It's like surveillance inside the earth in your well bore. What's happening in there? It's popularly used for hydraulic fracturing to see how much the fractures have increased and all these things. So microseismics is one very good topic which you can do further specialization in. I mean, when you're going to go for higher studies, you have to make it worth it. You have to learn something that's cutting edge, that's desirable by companies. The second option is heavy oil. Heavy oil is going to be the next shale revolution. So many people are looking into heavy oil because heavy oil reserves are vast. There are and all these huge MNCs, the big seven oil companies, they are looking into heavy oil now. So you're going to have like a huge revolution pretty soon. So it's very good to get into heavy oil today and come out 2 hours later, 2 years later. The next option is gas hydrates. If you're someone who want to continue research, there are Indian government or even foreign governments, Japanese government, German government. They are looking for programs in gas hydrates exploration and research programs. So it's a high potential area to find some further opportunities if you want to stay in R&D. And then for people who want to do something a bit more business oriented and oil and gas oriented, you have something called reservoir forecasting. So reservoir forecasting, it's like economic analysis, it's financial analysis combined with reservoir engineering. These are a small group of people who give an approval for a project for drilling to happen or not. They hold the key. They advise the company to go forward with the drilling procedure or not. They hold a lot of power, and this is a completely business-oriented job. You need economic analysis skills. You need the skills to study the market. You need skills to predict future market and things like that. And this is a very good area to do specialization in because there is a lot to learn. It's complete. It's very different from your bachelor studies, but those bachelor's knowledge you gain in your bachelor's degree, it's a prerequisite for this course. So reservoir forecasting is another very good option. And then for people who like mathematics, my fifth option for them is upscaling. Upscaling is a narrow area of reservoir characterization. So upscaling contains of designing mathematical models, computational simulations. It's a completely office-based job, but it's expanding. Upscaling is gonna require a lot of people to work in very near future. So it's a very prospective field to get into today. My last option, or my sixth option, which I'm presenting you today with, is artificial intelligence and machine learning in petroleum industry. Once you master artificial intelligence and machine learning, there are limitless options for you in today's petroleum operations, in petroleum engineering, in geophysics, in seismic acquisition, in migration pathways, identifying in petrophysics, log data, everything. You have limitless options, and you learning machine learning is basically free. You can go to Udacity and do some courses and learn machine. That's what I did for my master thesis. So learning machine learning, it's pretty free. It's you can just go and do it. So these are the six options I present people who are looking to go for higher studies to have a specialization. And there are options beyond these six options. These are just the ones which came into my mind in the last second. So you can go for any cutting edge new generation technology, but try to do a proper specialization so you are extremely desirable once you finish your master's. That's my advice. Those are my three advices.
That was really helpful. Like I'm really out of words to thank you for that. I'm pretty sure the students would love it actually. That was extremely helpful, and like yeah, people like me, like many people out there who are like diverted right now. People don't have a specific path or specific target. People are like, especially in this lockdown, people are thinking what to do, what to not do, what to do with my future. I'm doing nothing, and they
Yeah.
are going through a very depressive state.
Yeah.
I have some friends and I have meet some people who are into strict antidepressants right now because of this total lockdown of not non-productive
Yeah. Yeah.
lockdown.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure the thing that you said would be a hope of light, a ray of light of hope, and that's what I
Yes.
wanted to
Yes.
say actually.
Yeah. The bottom line message I want to convey is there are still a number of opportunities. There are opportunities which are being closed, but new doors are being opened. More number of doors are being opened than the ones being closed. So you have more number of operations and opportunities happening in petroleum industry today than you had yesterday. So try not to give up. Try not to abandon your petroleum engineering while finding a job, because I know that you're going to find a job in software or something 1 week into your job search. You're going to find it, but don't go for the temptation, because once you go to that temptation, it's really difficult to get back. It's not reversible, and you have to continue in that industry itself, try to grow slowly. But you have a degree with petroleum engineering, you have to justify it, right? So do not give up, do not give in to that temptation of going into some other job which you find. You're going to find that job 6 months later also, if you really want to go in there. So try to just, try to stay in the game.
I'm really thankful to you for that, and thanks a lot. I think we'll be ending our session over here,
Yeah.
and we'll be getting back to you and getting in touch to you for any further thing. I hope you won't mind for that.
Yes, yes, you probably have my contact info, my email, and my WhatsApp. But
Yeah,
you're
surely,
free.
surely.
Yeah, you're free to pass on this contact info for any student who are looking, who have some questions among the topics we discussed today, or who have some questions with these new generation technologies. They are free to contact me.
Surely, surely. I'd really do that, and that would be really helpful to the students and really, really encouraging to the students also.
Yeah,
So, thanks a lot, Varun, for being with us today. And
thank
this
you.
was an
It's a
enlightening
pleasure.
session. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
So,
Thank
we'll
you.
be ending our session right now.
Okay,
Okay?
great. Yeah.
Okay. Bye bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks.